Always good to speak with you. You're joining us from Alexandria, Virginia. How are you doing?
Hey, Natasha. Good to be with you again.
Good to be with you. And just for a bit of context for you, Julia, on the night that Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, Joe and I were on the air together. So you and I spoke for, I think, a solid 20 minutes about the gravitas of that particular Supreme Court judge leaving us. And so now we know who is very likely going to replace her. I want to get your initial reaction to what we just heard.
Natasha, what you saw right now was actually a very, very well done production. President Trump checked off both the legal and the humanistic positives of Judge Amy Coney Barrett, and then we heard from her. She's brilliant, she's telegenic, she has a great family story, she has a beautiful family. This was the easy part, though. It gets really hard from here.
Let's talk about this young woman who, for many, this is our introduction to her. So young, ambitious, as you said, brilliant, this great family story, adopted a couple of beautiful kids from Haiti, seems like, you know, should please a lot of people, particularly when she herself said that she's inspired by Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She knows the legacy that she has to carry on. She would be one of the youngest people ever nominated to the Supreme Court. She'd be the first mother of school-age children nominated to the Supreme Court. So what do you make of that juxtaposition that she's seen as someone with conservative values, but in some other ways she seems quite progressive?
Well, Natasha, I think she came across today as very down to earth, right? She said, I'm a Midwesterner. She showed her family, right? President Trump knows this will be a nominee that on a personal level will be very difficult to attack. And he's sort of putting that out there, knowing that this is going to affect the election, not just from a political perspective, but from a humanistic level. People are seeing her. It's going to be hard not to like her. And so Democrats will have to be careful to attack her on the policy, but not get on the personal side because she has a great story.
Let's talk about this for a second, because the law is your area of expertise, right? And for those of us, she is saying, I just have to read the law and I have to enforce the law. It's not my business to try and interpret policy. It's not my job to come to try and push forward any kind of policy making. So how exactly does this process work where a judge could be swayed one way or the other with their political decisions? And why is this so galvanizing in the United States?
Natasha, you're exactly right. She said, I love the Constitution, right? Those are words that conservatives love to hear. What she is conveying is that I believe the Constitution and the laws passed by Congress should be narrowly and literally read. And a judge should not infuse his or her personal beliefs or desired outcome in reviewing a case. Now, that's a fair statement, right? But a lot of people in this country feel like the Constitution, which is a 200-year-old document, can't be stayed. It's an evolving document. And we can't just literally read things, that we have to insert our views. We have to think about how does this affect real people. And so that's a very, very regular debate in this country between what I would call the conservatives and the liberals or the progressives, right? Amy Coney Barrett is a conservative, and she is signaling, I'm going to come down in the model of Justice Scalia, Justice Thomas, right? I'm going to give a very conservative reading of the cases that come before me. Sounds great, and it's exactly what the president's supporters want to hear, but that is not the kind of nominee you would see from, let's say, a President Joe Biden.
And within your legal circles, your community, what is the thinking around her? Is it, oh, she was an obvious pick, that makes a lot of sense, or did she sort of come out of nowhere?
No, she's been broadcast as a potential nominee for years now, right? She was on President Trump's initial list. Her name was floated the last time around in 2018 when Brett Kavanaugh was nominated. Granted, at that point, Judge Barrett had only been on the Circuit Court of Appeals for a year at that point. Now she's had 3 years in that role. So no, this is not a surprise. She is, having been a clerk for Justice Scalia, it's a very, very appropriate, for a conservative, a very appropriate nominee. So no, it's not a surprise.
Okay, Julia, I want to bring you back into the conversation because another thing that stood out for me when the president was nominating Amy at the ceremony, he talked about law and order, and that's something he's been tweeting about a lot. It's a phrase that we keep hearing again and again from him because up until the pandemic, he was really pushing his economics as the big selling point in the re-election. Now, unfortunately, the entire world had to shut down because of the pandemic. So now he shifted to being the president around law and order, and he sort of pushed on that in terms of this nominee. What did you interpret?